Right now on Upfront.
Countdown to debate night. How will you prepare? How are you going to prepare for a debate? 3 days from the highly anticipated state Supreme Court debate, the first and only time together ahead of the April election. The candidates on the campaign trail, appeals court judges Maria Lazar.
Of the two candidates who are running, I am the one who is going to restore that court.
Judge Chris Taylor.
Make sure that we elect a justice for the people. That's me.
Facing off for an open seat on the state's high court. And this Sunday, they're here. The final hours of debate prep, our new conversations over coffee, and a preview of what you may hear on the debate stage.
Well, it's somewhat amusing.
But look, I care about people.
Then Senate showdown.
They did come to us and ask us if we were in favor of this.
The state Senate passing several key bills with bipartisan support and opposition.
And this dirty deal.
Now the Senate's top Republican announcing he won't seek re-election. WisPolitics' J.R. Ross with his new reporting from inside the chamber, plus what he's watching as we get ready for debate night in Wisconsin.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Countdown to debate night in Wisconsin, right here now, just 3 days away.
The candidates for Wisconsin Supreme Court facing off in their only debate Wednesday night in prime time from the Marquette Law School. Matt and I will moderate judges Maria Lazar and Chris Taylor on the big issues competing for the open seat on the high court after Justice Rebecca Bradley decided not to seek another 10-year term.
Control of the court is not at stake this time around, but the implications for years to come. This weekend, the final hours of debate prep and our new interviews over a cup of coffee, and perhaps a preview of what we'll all see Wednesday night. We have a debate coming up?
Yes, we do.
How will you prepare? How are you going to prepare for a debate?
I've been preparing constantly. I've been talking to people. I'm going to other events where we were supposed to have debates with my opponent, but she's canceled everything but one. So I was supposed to be about 5. So I go to those, I talk to people, I'm talking to diverse groups, I'm answering questions that they have. That's my step 1 preparation. My step 2 will be getting a little down deeper and preparing a little more and getting ready to go. And then I think that because I have nothing to hide and I have put my positions out, I think I could go with the debate now. We could do it today if you wanted to.
Well, I'm preparing like I have throughout this campaign. I'm looking at questions, obviously, that I could be asked, but really my focus is on doing everything I can to communicate to the voters that I care about them, that I am passionate about the law, and I'm passionate about justice for them. So my focus is really on the voters and the people of the state of Wisconsin. And I'm working to just make sure that that message is very loud and clear for the people of this state.
When people describe you as the liberal candidate in this race, how do you respond to that?
Well, look, I care about people's rights. That's what drove me to law school. To begin with, I am passionate about protecting people's rights and freedoms. I really think the law is something that unites us. It doesn't divide us. It creates common rules, and it does address what were the expectations that we each have of each other. And the law is a powerful tool for really improving people's lives and improving our communities. So that's my commitment.
When people describe you as the conservative candidate in this race, what do you say to them?
Well, it's somewhat amusing because I'm an independent. I was never a member of a political party. I was never appointed to any judicial positions. I've run for both of my positions. I'm a constitutional conservative, but I've issued opinions that have not gone. If someone would try to guess and say, oh, the conservative's always going to go this way or that, I don't. I mean, I go with the facts and the law, and wherever that takes me is what I do.
When voters see the commercials or whatever is thrown at them in these final weeks, and they wonder, is she going to be a rubber stamp for the Republican Party? Why would I vote for her? What would you tell them?
Well, I would say I'm not a rubber stamp for the Republican Party. I did apply for a judgeship, and when I was applying, the one thing I said out loud was, I will not be a rubber stamp for any party whatsoever. And oddly enough, I didn't get that call to get that appointment. So I think if anyone looks on my website, judgemarialazar.com, and they look at the opinions I've written, there is not one that you would look at initially and say, we know how she's going to rule because she's going to rule for the right side, the Republican side, the conservative side. That's not it at all. My rulings have been on the circuit court bench, on the Court of Appeals, have been purely based on the law and the Constitution. And people being concerned, I've talked to groups across the state who are independent, who are conservative, who kind of hate everybody, and it doesn't really matter. I've talked to them and told them the honest, transparent truth about myself.
You're a former Democratic state lawmaker. When voters are kind of walking through all this stuff and they think, well, is she just going to be a rubber stamp for Democrats? You would tell them what?
Well, look, I would tell them that throughout my entire 30-year legal career, the thing that has been motivating for me is to make sure that people's rights and freedoms are protected and that they get justice. So I've had a very diverse 30-year legal career that makes me very different than anybody else who's on the court or the person I'm running against. I've been in private practice as an attorney representing your regular Wisconsinite, not the big corporations like my opponent. I've been the law and policy director for Planned Parenthood, where I worked to make sure that patients had access to reproductive health care and the ability to make their own personal and private health care decisions. I was in the legislature, obviously advocating for my community, which is much like what an attorney does for their clients. Is I was an advocate, though, for the people who are electing me. And then, of course, these last years as both a circuit court judge and a Court of Appeals judge.
The recent Marquette poll just out showed about 49% of Wisconsinites say they approve of the current state Supreme Court. Do you approve of the current state Supreme Court?
I do. I approve of the current state Supreme Court. I think we are finally seeing this court hold the legislative branch and the executive branch accountable. They did strike down these gerrymandered legislative maps that some election experts said were so gerrymandered. They found that the legislature had acted unconstitutionally, and I agreed with that. I thought that was the right decision. That is, I think, symbolic of the court acting in its capacity to check the other branches of government. So yes, I thought that was a fair, right decision.
Do you approve of the current court?
I'm not sure what you mean by approve of the court. I think this court has taken a few steps towards partisanship, towards agendas and mandates, and I think that's unfortunate. I think that in their hearts they try to do a good job, and I think in cases that are not maybe politically viewed by the state, they do, and I'm just concerned that in some there may be a sense that they step over some lines.
I'm curious your thoughts when you hear the president say he's ashamed of some of the U.S. Supreme Court justices after a recent ruling. What goes through your mind?
So I think that's another reason why I'm running in this race. I hear people, the president, politicians, the public, comment on, in federal situations, about who appointed the judge. And yes, it's interesting to me who appointed the judge, but for me the issue is then I know how long they've been on the bench. So if you say it's a Reagan appointee, which is probably hard to find, or an Obama appointee, or a Biden appointee, or a Trump appointee, I know how long they've been there. But if you think that that's how they're going to rule, that's a mistake in most cases. I think the public really deserves to have justices and judges federally and statewide who are there because they want to be there to represent the state, to really restore justice and to bring back integrity to this court and not be looked at as one side or the other.
Look, it is so important that judges are not attacked because of their attempt to perform their job. And we have seen things that are very alarming, I think. Judges threatened with impeachment. Judges threatened, their physical safety threatened. And it seems that judges for just doing their jobs have come under such attack. And that worries me. That worries me. You know, we can disagree with, and my colleagues and I on District 4 of the Court of Appeals, we do not always agree, but we work it out. We talk about it. We talk about our differences. And I think that's what needs to happen in these scenarios. We should not be attacking judges for trying to do their jobs.
Let's do a couple of kind of speed round questions for you. What's more enjoyable, circuit court or appeals court?
Ooh, that's a hard one, and that's tough. I actually love the Court of Appeals. The only thing I miss is seeing the attorneys and the public every day. And I miss doing jury trials, but I love writing more, so Court of Appeals.
What do you like better?
It's so hard because I like pieces of them both that the state Supreme Court brings together. I think at the end of the day, I probably like the appeals court.
Okay.
A little bit better because we have time to really dig in to the legal issues of the day, and on the circuit court, you have so many cases.
I know you're on the campaign trail and you're busy. What's the latest thing you've read or the best thing you've read recently?
I am now reading the RGB book, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg biography. And so that is sitting at my bedside table, and I read a couple pages of that every night.
Oh, greatest thing I've read. Well, I'm reading a devotional that I read every day.
Okay.
I have various series of mystery novels that I'll read. I have them on my iPad from the library. So, and I can't recall the last one because, quite frankly, the last book I read was on Thanksgiving. I took the whole day and I read a book.
One book in one day.
Yes,
That's a good,
it was only 400 pages. I got it done. It was good.
Law and Order or true crime?
True crime.
Yeah.
When I was driving, I had to do a cross-country drive. I had Dateline on for, I think, like 4 days. That's all I listened to. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm neither one.
Okay.
And I think I'm neither one because I was on the circuit court in a criminal rotation. And so I drove my husband crazy when he loves Law and Order, and I would say, it doesn't happen like that. Oh my gosh, that would never happen.
Guilty pleasure on the campaign trail?
Oh, singing in the car, just singing. I have a wonderful staff member who comes with me everywhere. And, you know, I'm on the phone a lot, but when I'm not on the phone, we often just crank the tunes up and we sing.
What's your guilty pleasure on the campaign trail?
Ooh, my guilty pleasure is chocolate. And I try to cut down a lot of sugar, but this campaign has made me realize there's sometimes you just need to indulge in chocolate.
It is a grueling campaign trail no matter who you are. Singing in chocolate, apparently, this time around.
There you go. Our preparation continues this weekend. So, too, for the candidates. Next, WisPolitics' J.R. Ross is standing by on what he'll be watching for, plus the drama in the state Senate. What's next after that final floor day?